Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me right now, and I hope I'm live. Let me have a look if I'm live. Might be a delay. So I'm just gonna have a look to make sure everything is working. It seems like it's working. Welcome to this new live stream, my second live Q&A here on YouTube. So I'm really excited for it. I hope you're also excited, and maybe you have some questions that I can try to answer or talk about. And I guess this is always the most awkward part of getting started with a live stream. If you're interacting with the chat, within the chat, you have to be subscribed for at least 1 minute, and then you can message in the chat. Please be mindful of other people within this community who are also interacting, be respectful, and so on. We want to create an inclusive and safe and welcoming space, so please help me do that, right? So more people can get involved. Welcome, everybody. I'm just gonna look down for some time in between. Hello. Thank you for joining. Let me show this. It's great to have you here. Kunal, you are everywhere. Really, it's amazing. It's so great to, since I got started in this space, in this community, everybody whom I met, I've only met you all virtual. So I have not met anybody on my Twitter or anybody from my company, I think. Yeah, not anybody even from my company in person. And it's really nice to see people, like the same people, show up at similar events and so on, because that kind of creates this community, right? Which is really amazing. Welcome, everybody, for joining. We are going to talk about my journey, and we're going to talk about your journey and some of your questions that I got. And I'm really excited to do this live because I get lots of questions, and I hope I got most of them kind of filtered out. Some of them are similar, so I just used one of them. I'm going to show them in a second and kind of get started with those. If you have any questions also in the chat, feel free to just go ahead and ask questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them, to reply, to engage. But what I want to do is basically with this live stream is to, and I'm probably going to host this like once a month, or depending on how many questions I get. But if you have questions that I cannot try to answer, and I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but if I can try to answer some of your questions, then please do get involved in the community. Let me post the link. It's community.100 days of Kubernetes. Let me just get the link, Kubernetes.io, so you can join that chat if you're not in there yet. Let me put that up. I think it's community. Yeah, that should lead you to our Discord. And if you have any questions, please do ask in that Discord, because then also other people who have more experience than I can get involved and answer your questions, and you get more qualitative answers and input and feedback. And if you want to start a discussion because you want to just have other thoughts on what you're doing, then that's also really amazing. If you have produced any content, any tutorials, please also do share them in this community, because there are amazing community members who want to also see your content. So if you have any content, any blog posts, any tutorials, any video content, any events that you're attending that you came across, or any other useful content that you came across, please do share it, because it makes the community a lot more qualitative and engaging. And if you directly message me questions, I will probably collect them like I did just now with this live stream, and then just answer them in bulk in a live stream, so other people can hear my answers as well, and it's not just within our replies one-on-one, right? Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. This is so exciting. I'm more probably excited than you are with these live streams. I had yesterday a live stream, and it's funny because I'm less nervous whenever people host a live stream, because I don't have to take care of anything. It's just sitting there and talking, and now I have to take care of things, and I'm not good at multitasking. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah, Kunal is everywhere, right? He's attending every. Oh, I wonder when you people sleep, because I feel like you never even sleep, which is fascinating. I hope my connection is okay. It shows that my connection is unstable. So if I'm breaking off, I'm really sorry about that. I will try to make it work. But welcome, everybody. Did I miss anybody? I try to show all of your messages. Awesome. Okay, so what I want to do in this live stream, right? Let's get started. Enough people had time now for 5 minutes to join, right? Let's get started. 5 minutes are enough. So this is my Google. So here is my Notion page. Now, if you have come across Notion before, Notion is an amazing, really amazing tool. And I created this on Notion, which is kind of where I got started. So when I got started in DevOps 10 months ago, I was like, well, I should record what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and what I'm reading about somewhere, right? And I was already using Notion quite heavily for it's a note-taking tool primarily. And I was using it for that mainly. So I was using a lot of Notion stuff to take notes. And I thought, okay, let's use it and build a public site, because it allows you, basically, when you start a Notion page, it allows you to make the sites public. And there are ways that you can add a custom URL. So let me just post this. You can go to that link here. And you can see what I'm looking at basically as well. And that's basically what I mean when I said I started this public Notion page. And it's just like a bunch of resources where I basically started recording my notes. No, why am I telling you this? I forgot why I'm telling you this. There was a purpose behind it. So, no, I remember. So, within this Notion page, I took notes of some of the questions I got, and I divided them basically in questions that are related to 100 days of Kubernetes, then questions related to DevOps and the Sivo DevOps Bootcamp that just launched, and the Sivo Academy that just launched. So I'm going to talk a bit about the stuff that we're doing within Sivo, the company that I'm working with, because people asked about that in my chats, in my DMs and in other conversations that I was in. So I thought I'm just going to address it. If that's not of interest, if any of this is not of interest, or you would like to talk about something else, just post the topics related to DevOps and 100 days of Kubernetes that you would like to talk about in the chat. Because if you post them in the chat, then I know what you would rather like to talk about. So if I see a lot of messages that are, for example, career related, I'm going to spend less time on this part and spend more time on the career related questions and stuff. So I'm just, that's basically the plan. The link isn't working. The link above isn't working. Why is that link not working? Let me open. Okay, we want to make this link here work, right? I have a bunch of links open. How do I open? Okay, I'm just going to post it here. If I can access it, then you should be able to access it. It might take some time to reload. So if this link is not working, this link that I just posted, maybe just try to refresh and it should work. If it's not working, there's also, what's on here is basically the main thing is just the notes on 100 days of Kubernetes. So if you're interested in those notes, they are also at 100daysofkubernetes.io, which you should be able to access. So if I go to, I think the link is here, 100daysofkubernetes.io, you should be able to access this one, but sometimes it's also not working. Also, maybe if you are in a different browser. The community link is not working. Maybe I messed up the community link. Community.100daysofkubernetes. Okay, that led me to the Discord now. So let's close that. And maybe let's just post a direct invite link. Oh, but can you copy paste that? Does that work? Check if that works. If that Discord invite link works. If it doesn't work, I can try again. We'll see. We'll figure this out. Awesome. I hope it works. I hope the other one works. So I really don't like looking at my face. So let's not look at this anymore. This is over now. Okay. So okay, that invite link works. Awesome. That's amazing. Also, anybody who's within the community has access to a channel called invite link, and you can find the same invite link directly to the Discord there as well. So if anybody needs an invite link, just ping people on Twitter and so on. Somebody will have that invite link. People have access to it. I just put an overlay of community.100daysofkubernetes.io over it. But maybe I should check that redirect. Awesome. Okay, so questions. So I'm just going to read the question, I think, and then I'm just going to provide my thoughts on it, kind of something like that. You can also, please feel free to get involved. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. This is really amazing. So somebody asked, I saw your talk in the SIVO bootcamp. Let me make this a lot bigger. So if you are on a small screen, you can also see it. I saw your talk on the SIVO bootcamp and heard about 100 days of Kubernetes, found the stuff around it, but I can only see up to day 39. Have you shifted to some other platform or just stopped for now? So in the past months, I have been really inconsistent, posting about 100 days of Kubernetes and posting about the challenge. And obviously, I want to complete the challenge for myself because there's so many more things that I want to do. So what are the plans for me for 100 days of Kubernetes? Plans for 100 days, let's say, right? So first of all, I want to take the CKA or the CKS, or both of them even. CKS. So if we look at the CKA certification, I guess, what is this? Certification. Then we can look at Certified Kubernetes Administrator, and that's basically the exam that I would like to take. Now, I was originally planning to take the Certified Kubernetes Developer exam, something like that it's called. And I think I want to take this one, but it's kind of just like it's there at some point. I want to take it, but the thing is, if you don't actually plan for it, then it's never really gonna happen. So that's something I want to work towards. So I want to make videos that are basically walking through example questions and similar, and just example tutorials as well. I think that's really valuable, and it's also valuable for me because there's a lot of things that I probably haven't looked at and haven't learned about. So I also got separately to this, I got a question about the path, or like what should you learn when you take the Certified Kubernetes Administrator or Certified Kubernetes Security something exam. And the thing is, I haven't looked too much at the resources yet. There are amazing resources by, for example, Sayam and other amazing people within the cloud native ecosystem who are focused really on the certification preparation for those exams. I haven't done that in that detail because I've been really focused on CNCF landscape, on the CNCF roadmap. So my main goal was, with 100 days of Kubernetes so far, to familiarize myself with this landscape and a lot of the tools within. And why did I decide to focus on the tools instead of the exam per se? That would be the first question that would come to my mind if somebody would tell me about it. I've started focusing on those tools because I wanted to have, for my work primarily, but also for myself, I wanted to have examples of how can I use Kubernetes. If I learn about operators, what are operators and how are they used within those projects? Like, how are operators used within Argo or other tools that are within this landscape? And that allows me to make a better connection between what I'm actually learning and how that applies to the ecosystem. Is the Discord server created now? Yes, that's a good question. The Discord server, yeah, there is a Discord community. I don't want to open my Discord yet because then you see like it's a mess right now. I should probably clean it up. But there is already a Discord community. I can message you or message me on Twitter, and I can send you the link there as well. Make sure that you have that link as well. So if you can't access the link in the chat right now, then please message me on Twitter and I will just send you the link. That would be amazing. Or also, Kunal should have the link as well, so you can probably message him as well. So I hope you get access to the Discord channel. So yeah, but within my 100 days of Kubernetes, I mainly focus on this landscape because I thought, hey, this is really cool. I want to get started with those different tools that are basically listed on this landscape. So going back to what actually have I planned for 100 days? Yes, I want to take the exams, and the exams are basically at some point for my own achievement, that what I learned as part of learning that landscape, the cloud native landscape, that I actually am able to use what I've learned. Like that there's something, it's basically to fight my internal imposter syndrome. So I hope I'm going to take the exams. I'm not actually like specifically planning them, but I'm planning specific content around it. Now, separately, I also want to do more tutorials. I'm going to type really slow because I can't talk and type at the same time. So I want to do a lot of more of the A to Z tutorials of like, let's start with this basic application, or let's even build the application, or what do you have to add to the application to then create a container image, to then create your Kubernetes manifest, to then create additional resources, deploy additional custom resources to manage your application, and so on. So I want to focus more on those A to Z tutorials because I feel like they are a lot more valuable. Whether you are getting started or also whether you are an expert within the space or like really good with those tools and with Kubernetes itself. Yeah, so I want to focus on tutorials on I wouldn't say beginner focused tutorials, but on tutorials that focus on like those aspects that are maybe you would learn about at the beginning on your journey, on your 100 days of Kubernetes journey, but then also more specific tutorials such as how do you use Helm and Terraform together and stuff like that. Also things that I do related to my work, because at my work, I use tools in a really specific way, which means I don't necessarily know how else I can use those tools. So when I use at work Terraform in one way, I might not actually know how else I can use Terraform. So I want to do more tutorials that are really focused from A to Z. So I'm probably going to also have tutorials that are multiple parts long, because I don't want to have an hour of tutorials, for example. So that's what's planned for my 100 days. Next, that's the primarily thing of like what's planned in the next, yeah. So this is basically kind of the first question. If there's anything specific you would like to see within 100 days on my channel, then please do reach out or comment on my YouTube channel or like here in the chat. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, there's a comment of like, that's a long journey. 100 days is a long journey. You can also do 30 days. You can do 10 days. It's about, it's not even about doing it every day. I think for me, at least personally, I don't even have the time to do it every day by now. But the idea is that you basically focus on a specific topic across a time frame, right? That you, because I personally have the tendency to switch between topics. Like if I wouldn't have committed to 100 days of Kubernetes, I would be doing a bunch of different things simultaneously. And that kind of led me to right now being like kind of know a little bit about a lot of different things, but not really being really good in one thing, one area. So certification path. Yeah, this is like a really common certification path that people take: the developer exam, then the administrator, and then the security exam. I'm not sure anymore I want to take the developer exam just for personal reasons, but that's a really common path that I guess also a lot of people would recommend. Yeah, it's about enjoying the learning journey. That's really well said, Kunal. It's about enjoying the learning journey. And of course, you learn a lot along the way. And you get involved with the community. That's, I think, the other main thing that I have been focused also on. Like, I could do 100 days of Kubernetes in like really 100 days, and it's done in 3 months, more or less, right? And then it's done, and I would be probably done by now. But that would not allow me to do these additional things within the community and talks and collaborations and help people out. And there's a lot of like invisible work that goes into it, right? That I wouldn't be able to do, or like that you wouldn't be able to do if you just do it in one flow. So I guess it really depends what's your goal when you start something like a challenge like 100 days of Kubernetes. I think that answers the question. So I'm going to move on to the next. So I'm thinking of writing a short blog for each day. It doesn't have to be every day, of course, and maybe using your repository for 30 days could be useful. So there is, for 100 days of Kubernetes.io. Get that link. So there's also, we can go here to the GitHub repository. I can post that as well. And within the GitHub repository, let me post this one. There's from Rishab, he made this Kubernetes journey. And you can clone this repository. So just hit clone. And then you can basically clone, you cloned it, you have cloned it, and you can fill it out. And that's really, really handy. So you can either do that, or you can whatever you prefer. It's really about just the idea of 100 days of code, for instance, or just any 100 days kind of challenge that has been there is primarily that you focus on doing something like each day and showing it, right? This public commitment. Like by you committing to a challenge, to a learning journey publicly, you are more engaged maybe, and you are more likely to carry on and actually go through with it. Having so many things to explore and learn excites me more and more. Yeah, there's there's so much that you can learn. It always fascinates me. There's always like something else. When I'm learning about something, I come across something else, right? And sometimes, to be honest, I get really, really demotivated, and it helps me to have calls with other people and see what other people are doing and know that there are more people who are engaged in similar content and learning about similar things, and that they are really excited about it. So I don't have to be always 100% excited about what I'm learning, but when then I meet somebody else, I'm talking to somebody else who's really excited, it's kind of infectious in a way of me getting more excited about it. So yeah, you can find this here, and this is like one example of how you could record your journey, for example. And you could do it across 30 days. It doesn't really matter. It's more like about the idea of you learning consistently about a topic until you feel like you're at a certain level. So I just had a quick question that would be a good idea to blog every day of my 100 days of Kubernetes learning journey on my blog page, like a summary of sorts. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, if it's effective or not, or even beneficial for anybody. But I just had the idea and wanted to put it forth. I'm a little bit confused. So it's basically, let me rephrase this question. I literally just copy paste questions. So you can, and I mentioned this yesterday as well, you can literally like, let me put this away. So you can do whatever you feel like is beneficial for you, right? And it's not about following just my learning journey. Maybe some parts of what I'm doing is useful to you, but if you come across something else that you want to study or look at the next day, go for that, right? And if you, within your 100 days of Kubernetes, if you want to, like, if you just throughout those 100 days or like less, if you copy paste or like recreate what other people have done, or just go through the starter content of documentation and just work through the documentation of different tools, right? Like all of these tools, they have documentation and they have starter guides and so on. So if you look at those starter guides and you recreate the starter guides and put that on your blog, then other people might come across it. And by you recreating it, you will recreate that, basically the starter guide, on your own environment. And by you doing this thing like the starter guide on your own environment, you might run into different errors or different conflicts, and you have to resolve it in certain ways. So by you detailing how you basically handle challenges of using any of those tools, it will help other people a lot. So you don't have to create original content in that way. It's just you following any of those guides, or any existing guides or tutorials, and detailing how you managed to use that guide is super helpful for a lot of people within the space. There have been so many scenarios where I have tried to use some of these tools. I don't want to name any names, right? I don't want to pinpoint to a specific tool, but where I basically tried to use one of those tools and it just didn't work, and I would spend like days even trying to make the tool work, and I had no idea what I was trying, like what was going wrong and why it wouldn't work for me, even though the documentation would say so. And I'm still like, I'm really shy actually in many aspects, and I don't want to sometimes I don't feel comfortable getting involved and asking questions in the Slack community, even if that's the right thing to do. Like, the maintainers of these tools encourage you to get involved and ask questions if you come across anything that doesn't work or so on, to ask questions in those Slack channels. And I have a really, like, I guess my own ego is kind of like, I can do it myself, right? But which is really unhealthy in a way, because then I spend days trying to figure something out and get really frustrated, which is really not ideal, right? Like, I don't know how you feel about it, or if you have been in that position before, maybe comment that, but I tend to get stuck a lot. And me figuring out how I made it work and detailing it might be useful for somebody else then. Because the documentation of these tools is largely not perfect, right? There's no such a thing as a perfect documentation. So just by you recreating what's out there, you provide a lot of value. And it doesn't have to be original, original in the way of like you coming up with something completely new and a completely new tutorial, because that takes so much effort, right? So the fourth question is, I hope you're doing well. Thank you. I'm doing very well. I actually wanted some guidance from you regarding 100 days of Kubernetes. During the initial phase, the journey was going quite well. But after that, things started to go a little haywire. That's a new word for me. Due to college and stuff. To be honest, I felt really sad that I wasn't able to be consistent, and now wanting to resume things all over again, how it had started. So it would be really helpful if you could provide some advice and tips so that this time I'm able to do more focus and especially consistent in both the learnings as well as provisioning value to other people in the community. That's a very amazing question. Thank you for asking the question. And there are a lot of times, I mean, I just mentioned at the beginning that I have not been too consistent, right? At the beginning, I was literally posting videos every single day, and I was during my vacation. And so I was posting videos or taking the time to post videos every single day. And you obviously, that's something that's really time intensive. And if you're not in the middle of a certain lockdown, you can't necessarily do that. So so I stopped doing that, and I stopped being as consistent. And like mentioned, if you're getting involved with the community and you're doing other stuff, then it's completely okay not to be consistent. Like if you are helping somebody else out one day, right? Maybe write about that, write a tweet about that, and that counts towards your 100 days. If you want to make 100 days happen, then be generous to yourself with your time. That's like what I would tell you. Oh, you can't even see it. Here's the question if you want to reread the question. I'm just going through the chat. This chart fears me. Oh, the landscape chart. Sorry, but sometimes the accent is like British accent. Wait, so I will try to speak a bit slower. Let me know if I'm speaking too fast, too quick, please. I tend to speak really quick, especially when I get nervous. So I will try to speak a bit slower. Awesome. So have you considered other orchestration tools? I'm just going to go through the chat in between answering these questions that I have here on my Notion page. Okay. So have I considered other orchestration tools other than Kubernetes? I have considered others. I have read briefly, not too much, but I have read a bit into other tools. The thing is that when I got started in the space, I was quite lucky in the sense of I moved from the blockchain space into DevOps. So I moved from one developer advocacy role into another developer advocacy role. And by working in this space, I had access to different people with a bit more knowledge than I did. And they were basically telling me that the industry is moving towards Kubernetes and that I should spend most of my time around Kubernetes, and that the adoption with CNCF and so on is also moving towards Kubernetes. So I've basically from the beginning quite directly started focusing on Kubernetes. If you're between different tools and you're not sure which tool to use, sometimes there are comparisons available that you can check out. I can also link afterwards in this Notion. I will basically make this Notion page a lot prettier, and then also share this Notion page with you on the comments here below afterwards, so you can have a look at that too. But I've considered other orchestration tools other than Kubernetes, but I've basically asked some people and they told me to focus on Kubernetes, and that's what I did. And that's my simple answer to that. I'm sorry if you expected something more complex or more comprehensive. That was kind of it. Anything else? I'm just going through the chat. I feel like I missed something. That's the thing. It feels really like that's the problem with live streams. It feels like you're always behind a bit. You're always trying to catch up. So if I forget something, please just repost it. That's an interesting question. What do you think about law code in terms of low code? No code. Oh God, I read it wrong. What do you think about no code, low code in terms of DevOps and CI/CD? Greetings from Germany. Hello. Awesome. Thank you for joining. Thank you for asking the question. That's a really good question. And I think I mentioned that a few times in different videos that I made that were focused on me using platforms that only used buttons and UI, basically interfaces, websites, right? And the problem so I'm not saying that all of those tools that solely depend on a UI are bad in any way. It really depends on the tool. But if I am trying to manage something like Kubernetes clusters and something that is ultimately that is coming from code, right? Like Kubernetes, you write YAML files, and you maybe use other tools such as Terraform or Helm charts or so on to manage those YAML files, to manage your manifests, and you will write your container images and so on. And only right now, only by you going in, like getting involved with those technologies and actually writing your own container images and trying to write your own YAML files, I think that's the only way right now that you will actually learn about how it actually works. So that's why, let me draw it. So you could either move here when you get started, getting started. Let me move my mic, that's in the way. So I hope you can still hear me. So when you're getting started, you have two options. You can either write pure YAML, how do you say, write pure code, let's say, and then learn how to manage that. And then once you know that, you can then move into UIs, right? And you will know how the YAML files, how everything basically works. So for example, another example, when we're not talking about YAML, but when we're talking about websites, right? Oh, you can't see. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can you see this? No, you can see it, right? Can I zoom in? Oh, I can zoom in, but this was the wrong zoom in. This is like, oh my God, this is really bad. Now I can, oh, how do I go to the site? Oh, does this work? I'm trying to move back to the side. Okay, I think you can see this now, yeah? I think is this good? Okay, I hope this is good. This is now larger. Awesome. So, talking about websites. When you start your first website, right? There are tools that allow you to spin up a website by not writing any HTML, any CSS, right? And that's one way to spin up a website, but you won't actually learn how a website is built. You won't learn any JavaScript, right? So if it's you trying to do more complex things other than a UI interface where just with some static content, but you want to have a dynamic website, an interactive website, then those tools might be quite limiting for you and for your use cases. So that's when you will have to go back and actually learn how you can build a website, right? So the thing is, when you write pure YAML files and you start with that and you start learning about that, that's probably, especially if you try to get a job, I would say that's far more valuable that you know how YAML files are constructed than that you know how to use UIs, right? Like obviously, if you're training towards AWS, Azure, or Office certificates, right? You will learn how to use their UI, how to use their platform. But the thing is that those platforms are highly complex and widely used, and you need specific skills and specific understanding of the different components of those platforms to use them properly. So that's a different scenario. So when we're talking about no-code and low-code tools, I love this question. Then we're like, I would say we're talking about tools that really allow you to provide your application, maybe provide your container image, and it will deploy it for you. But the deployment will be probably highly simplistic. That's at least my experience, that a lot of those deployments will then be highly simplistic, and you will have little room to actually modify them because they will enforce their own standards. So if you start by writing pure code and then you will start using UIs and basically web interfaces to manage your application, then you will be able to really understand what is the web interface actually doing with it. Versus if you do it the other way around and you start with this is option 1 that we just discussed. Let's say 1. And this is option 2. And when you start with option 2, then you will have more problems moving from understanding or having used UIs to deploy your application to Kubernetes, and then writing pure code, pure YAML files, pure YAML manifests, and so on. You will have probably problems, I would assume, to do that because the UIs tend to be highly opinionated. So they will use, for example, different names to what you would use within your Kubernetes manifest. And that might become difficult to understand. So that's basically my answer to it, what I think about them. So for CI/CD tools, platforms, it's a bit different, and it really depends on the tool. So, I mean, largely it also depends on your own preferences. Do you prefer using a terminal and doing everything for your terminal and through code and Git, or do you prefer interacting with a UI? The main thing is that if you're working within a team, you should make it trackable, right? So you want to have certain features, such as that changes are trackable. Changes are trackable. I have problems talking and typing, and trackable, and you understand what's going on, right? How should I summarize it? Visibility, and stuff like that, right? I mean, that's kind of similar, but I could make a separate video about that in comparison if that's of interest. So, what else? You missed the beginning. Don't worry. I will post it. It will be on YouTube later. Awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for dropping into my live stream. That means a lot. Thank you. Cool. Okay, cool. Now I have here some other questions that I might spend a bit less time on. So I already discussed at the beginning what topics I will be covering next within my 100 days. Obviously, if you do 100 days of anything, you don't have to follow what somebody else did, right? It highly depends on what you want to learn and what you want to do, right? So don't limit yourself to what somebody else is doing. That's one of the points of like, I'm doing one thing, you don't have to do the same thing. Do I have to follow the exact same learning path? I just answered that. Yay. So how can you contribute to 100 days of Kubernetes? Where are we? This site here, going to 100daysofkubernetes.io. Where is it? Let me just open it up. You can contribute to that, and you can go basically to the GitHub. And then if there's any typo or anything, you just, let's go to observability. Let's say this has a typo somewhere. Oh, that's wrong. I have to fix that. Let's say, no, these are images. Helm, part 1. Let's say there's a typo, right? You can just edit it here. You can, and then it will basically clone the repository, and you can then start a pull request, and I can have a look at it, or I can walk you through how you can contribute, or you basically clone this, you make changes, and then you start a pull request. And that's, yeah, if you want to contribute, it would be really, really helpful. I would love for you to contribute to this. You can also contribute in other ways, such as getting involved in the community chat, which is community.100daysofkubernetes.io, which I linked also early up in the comments. That would be super, super helpful. And if you come across really like amazing content from other people, newsletters, podcasts, tutorials, just drop them into the community chat on Discord. That would be super helpful for other people within the Discord as well, right? Because everybody's reading about different content. So that would be super helpful. And I answered this question at the beginning. What do you have to learn for your CKA exam? I'm going to be looking at that kind of stuff at the exams in more detail in future videos. So I haven't explored it too much yet. There are these 2 links that I'm gonna. Can I open it up? That I'm going to share with you. And I also shared already within my newsletter, and that's why I found them again. So there's this exam preparation series with basically exam questions, practice questions. So you can see like what kind of questions are asked. I will share all of this. Can you see it? I hope you can see it. I will share all of this later on. Oh, no, I made it too small. And you can take a look at it, and that might be helpful. And then there's also this simulator where you can basically try practice questions. It's a really good website. So I'm going to share those resources again, also when I make these videos. Now, moving on to the CVO DevOps Bootcamp. Who here has heard about the CVO DevOps Bootcamp before? Can you give me a thumbs up or a smiley face or something in the chat so I know if anybody who's watching has heard of our CVO Academy or DevOps series before? That would be really interesting to know. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna go through the chat and see if there's something I can have a look at. Oh, this is a good question to what I've said before. Would K9s be considered as a low-code Kubernetes tool? As a low-code Kubernetes tool, as it's more focused towards UI usage, more easy to use for beginners. So let me have a look. Let me show you what K9s is. So I have K9s installed. What happens if I do help? So yeah, I have it installed. And right now I'm on a demo example cluster that's on my Sivo account. Let me make this a bit bigger so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay, so when I go now ahead and say K9s, this is basically what K9s is. I see here all of my cluster resources. Now, the first time I looked at K9s, I wanted to run screaming away, okay? So if that's how you feel right now, I understand you, and it's okay. Breathe, okay? It's okay. This looks complex, right? At least for me, I thought this was horrible at the beginning. No, I love it. And I think that's generally the onboarding curve for a lot of people who use K9s. At the beginning, it's quite scary when you look at this. Now, the thing is, when you type colon and then you look, for example, pods, right? You will see all the pods, and this is basically what's displayed here. Now I can say colon and I look for services, and I see within my cluster all of the services that are right now running. And I should probably delete this load balancer service. Anyway, so but here all of those, right? And then I can look for namespaces. So I can also type the short form and I see all of my namespaces right now. And then I can select the namespace, let's say Argo CD, and I hit enter. And then here I see the pods that are right now running within the namespace. Now I can also go ahead and I can delete something. Now this is just my example cluster, so I'm not worried right now of what I'm doing. And since this is managed by a custom resource definition, it's probably going to just spin up the same pod again. Anyway, so the thing is, I can also go back and here my namespaces, and then I can go into monitoring, and I see all of my Prometheus related resources. And this tool is really amazing when you have lots of stuff deployed within your Kubernetes cluster. Because if, like, of course, you could use the CLI, like I can say kubectl get namespace, and this is great, but then I have to write again kubectl get namespace argo cd, right? And this takes me a lot of time to do. So instead, K9s makes all of this a lot faster once you get familiar with it. So that's why I'm saying once you get familiar with K9s, you're gonna love it. But at the beginning, it's quite so I think it's kind of a middle thing. I wouldn't call it either or. It's a tool to help you be more effective. I think anything that helps you to be more effective without making what you do dumb in a way, then that's good. Like when with K9s, it's not an abstraction, it's just a visualization tool, right? It doesn't provide any abstraction. It's literally just displaying what's within my cluster. That's all it does. So I think that's kind of like an edge case in a way. Okay, let's go back to this. Let's go back to the other stuff. So I will go to career and stuff in a bit. So I think this question is related to careers related things. So but it's an amazing question. Thank you for asking. So this is a good question. What is K8s, K9s? Are they versions? So we have, let me go back to this page. So we have K9s, which is a tool that I just showed you. It's a tool to visualize, depending if you use American spelling, to visualize your cluster. That's what it is. Then we have K8s, which is the upstream Kubernetes. I hope I say that correctly. Distribution, which is the normal, I call it normal Kubernetes, because this is the Kubernetes everybody uses. And then we have K3s. And I think we have a few more, but we have then K3s. And K3s is another Kubernetes distribution. And K3s, as you can see, K8s is basically the 8 letters between the K and the S of Kubernetes. And that's why it's called K8s, Kates. And with K3s, they just chose it because 3 is smaller than 8. And K3s is a lightweight Kubernetes distribution. It can be fully used in production. It is nothing that, or it can't do anything in Kubernetes that this mainstream, normal Kubernetes can't do. It can do everything, but it basically has some things that are not necessary for a lot of Kubernetes deployments. It has it removed to make it lightweight. And this is, for example, how Sivo. Let me go to Sivo. Sivo has really fast cluster launch time. So if you can see here, we have on the website displayed how fast it was to spin up the latest cluster, just 87 seconds, something like that, right? It's always, it tends to be below 2 minutes in a lot of cases. Now, if you spin up a cluster on other providers, it can take you up to 25 minutes. And that's for you. That's enough time for you to do something else. And then you have to be really careful with the cluster, because what if you do something wrong or something happens and then you have to fix it, and because it takes a lot of time to spin up a new cluster. So especially if you use it in demo environments, Sivo is amazing because it's so fast, but also in other environments, it's just, that's just one of the benefits of using K3s. Anyway, I can talk more about it if that's of interest, and we have also on the Sivo YouTube channel more resources. But I want to take a look quickly at the Sivo Bootcamp, because there was this confusion of, is the Sivo Bootcamp, did it already happen? And we had 2 live streams already happen. So the Sivo Bootcamp is basically, let me just make sure that this doesn't play. It's basically a YouTube series. And the first one was just a panel discussion on what DevOps actually is, what does it mean to us, and a lot of related questions. And then the second one was an introduction to containers. So if you are new to containers, then check that out. It's also, it wasn't even an introduction. There was stuff that I had never heard of that was completely new to me. So I highly suggest you to check those out. That's basically the Sivo Bootcamp. That's a free online learning series that we host on our YouTube. So it's still happening. And then we also have the Academy, and the Academy is here, the Sivo Academy. I can post this as well. And that has more specifics videos from us on demand that you can see here, some of the videos that you can check out, that are more structured in a way of like a curriculum of sorts. They're all free. It's all free online learning resources that you can have a look at. That's basically all I wanted to say about that. And then it goes kind of I want to go into some of the other questions that are more career related. And I'm going to start with this one because I don't have too much time and I want to get to that question definitely. So does a DevOps engineer get free freelancing opportunities? So a lot of times what I've seen is that, and let me draw this. So a lot of times you start in a, let's say, junior position, and then from there you would move into a more, just like if you a junior DevOps engineer, you would move into a DevOps engineer, and then from there you move into senior or something like that. It's like the usual career path, and then you might go into management positions or so on. That's like the kind of career path I think that I've seen a lot. Or you would start directly within DevOps and then go from there. Now, alternatively, you could do freelancing, right? And I have done lots of freelancing in the past. Now, the thing is with freelancing, especially within tech, you tend to have people who are more senior who do freelancing. So you will have a lot of competition, usually within the freelancing world, of people who are more senior. So personally, I would find it really stressful. At least that's what my perspective, because you will have a lot of people who have worked for a long time in companies, who have maybe also done a lot of have also worked in a lot of large companies, so they have experience that they bring basically to their freelancing job. So I'm not saying that without that you can't have the same kind of experience of value. You can add a lot of value as a freelancer, right? But I think that within freelancing, you have a different kind of competition, and it's more about what the added value that you provide when you're freelancing. But there are freelancing opportunities within the DevOps space. I just think that that a lot of people who have been in the space for a long time take those. So those are my thoughts on it. Awesome. Content in Siva Academy is really helpful. Would definitely be using those. There's also like it's really not just starter content. There's also a lot of really advanced content within the Siva Academy. Like the networking stuff is really advanced, and a lot of the videos they start really simple, let's say, but they get super advanced once you like look at the later videos. You can also we have lots of tutorials, guides that are really technical. So if that's something you're interested in, check out our guide section. So here we have, for example, the Sivo Crossband provider and other guides on. They're more deep dives. Those guides here. So check those out if you're interested in that kind of content. Here, question. Can you please share your experience as a dev evangelist when you first started in the DevOps space? I can do that in a second, and maybe I can relate it to some other questions as well. That here, so here was, for example, this question of do you need 5 years of experience? And I tweeted a while ago about me having moved, and I'm talking about that quite openly, right? I have moved into the DevOps space with zero experience, right? I didn't have any experience in DevOps when I started in DevOps. Now, I put on my blog, and this is relevant here, a blog of saying why I don't follow my passion. Now, I can link that. And let me explain you why I'm bringing this up right now, yeah? Because basically a lot of times when you shift careers, when you have like one career one, right? And I was working for over 3 years in the blockchain space, and then you want to have another career, right? Career two, and you want to move in another industry. A lot of people, they just have like a straight cut and they say, okay, I'm done with my career one. I'm completely done with it. Let's just remove that from my memory and start with career two, right? And go with career two. No, not delete. Let's go with career two. The thing is, in this case, in career two, you will also, like, people obviously expect you to know certain things. Now, if you don't know those things, you're less hireable, right? If you don't have experience within that space, you're less hireable. But a lot of the skills are actually transferable. Like, you can transfer skills from one career to the other career, right? So that's kind of what I did. I was working as as developer evangelist, developer advocate in the blockchain space, and then I started working in the DevOps space, and I started in a junior role as developer advocate, just learning about the things and then writing about what I was learning. And obviously, I already had experience with technical writing. I already had lots of experience with documentation writing and newsletters and blog posts and community management. So those were all skills and more that I could apply to my DevOps role. So while I didn't know anything about Kubernetes and Docker, I was able to apply from my career number one, which was within blockchain, to my career number two. And that made me basically valuable within that role. Now, if I wouldn't have had a developer advocate role before, and I wouldn't have had experience with technical writing before, I probably would have had it a lot more difficult to break into a new career in that sense. Because a lot of times you see people who are moving from college or from a boot camp into engineering and then into DevOps and then into developer advocacy and so on, right? So it's a completely different career path than the kind of jumpy thing that I did. So I don't think you need a lot of experience. Like, you don't need 5 years of experience to start in DevOps, but it highly depends how you want to start. So for example, now my job title is site reliability engineer. I do a lot of technical engineering work as well and infrastructure management that is not necessarily developer advocacy, but I wouldn't have gotten that job if I wouldn't have started within developer advocacy and learning about everything related to DevOps and Kubernetes and infrastructure management within my developer advocacy role. So I kind of I moved from one role to the next. Now, if you think that's a good way or a bad one, that's up to you, right? But it worked out for me that way. And that's why I'm saying, like, even if your dream job or like your future job, the job that you want to have is DevOps engineer or I don't know, certain or some specific engineering role, right? You could do a lot in the meantime to build up your skills in other roles to get there, right? You don't have to start straight away in that role or like try straight away to get that one role. That's obviously one path, but it might be a lot harder than you starting in different career opportunities first, different roles first, and building up your skills on those, right? So for example, if you want to become a DevOps engineer or like a site reliability engineer, you could become a Go developer, Go engineer first and build up your skills there. So for example, right now I don't have much Go skills. Like my Golang skills are really poor, so I have to catch up on that, even though I'm already have the role. And that's kind of like me trying to fill the gaps in between, right? So what you could do instead is you could start with becoming an engineer, and just as an example, and then at some point move into DevOps or SRE work, right? Just as another example, and you will be so much more valuable in that case, like, and you would probably move straight away into a more senior role within DevOps engineer. But obviously, like starting as a Go engineer is a completely different career path, and that like as a starting point. So just as an example of how I would think about it or compare it. So let me try to get through a few more questions in the last 10 minutes. Can you please share more about how you get internships at remote companies, especially SRE, DevOps, and Kubernetes? So there's something called CNCF students. Let me see if I can find it. CNCF students. And CNCF students, this is an example, they have lots of upcoming events, and they also share lots of mentorship opportunities and similar. So you could start with what they are doing, their work, and get involved there, contribute to the projects within the landscape. Now I removed the landscape. And contribute to them and kind of build up your skills from there. And it's kind of like some of them provide kind of internship opportunities and mentorship programs as well. So, and that's one way you could get started. And then, I mean, I'm not too sure actually about or like about internship opportunities, like basically before you get started. It's also like it probably changed a lot in the past year, I would assume. What I would try to do when you want to get internship opportunities, what I did basically in other spaces before was to try to learn as much as I could on a specific topic where I wanted to get an internship in or with. And then let me remove that question. See how I'm horrible in managing this all. So what I would do if you want to get internship opportunities, yeah, I would try to learn as much as possible on a topic that you want to learn about, right? And then once, let me make my face bigger. Once you know a lot about that topic, right? Then I would try to identify startups, because startups always have not enough money for the number of people they need. They always need more help. They always need more people to contribute and to help them out with various tasks, right? And then just reach out to them and tell them, hey, this is what I did before. This is the kind of work that I did before. This is what I know. Let me show you. Let me do some example projects for you. Let me help you, like in any way possible. Because the default, like the default tendency of how we act is like, can I have an internship? Do you have any internship opportunities? So you expect them to give you something, and that's sometimes a lot of pressure on startups of like they don't have the resources to provide it to you or to assess your skills and see how you fit in. So if you can show them right away how you could fit into their startup, that makes a huge difference. And that's kind of how you can stand out and also get internship opportunities outside of official positions, let's say, right? So that would be my approach. That's what I've done before to get job opportunities. I would just learn as much as I could on a specific topic and then do example work and send companies along with my CV and my application those example projects, because that would allow them to have a look at whether or not I would fit within their company, and then they could basically decide independently if they would hire me or not, versus me having to go through the, let's say, standard application process. So that's like kind of one way how you can maneuver yourself around it. So last question. Hey Nais, I just found out about you and 100 Days of Kubernetes challenge you did on YouTube. I should say it's very well organized. Thank you. I'm kind of confused about beginning with DevOps since I don't have a lot of experience with development. I've worked with JavaScript and MeanStack and built some minor projects. I haven't been a part of any big projects yet. I think web development is great, but it's also a very saturated domain, and DevOps seems interesting. So this is like, these are kind of two questions. Let me show them to you in bigger. One of them is, should I move from web development to DevOps? Are there career opportunities? Is that something that I should be doing, or is that really risky? And the other question is, how do I get started with DevOps if I want to get started? And if you want to get started with DevOps, I would literally just go ahead and Google DevOps. And then from there, figure out what kind of topics are related to DevOps, what kind of tutorials you would find interesting, and so on. And go from there and kind of branch yourself off into different areas within the DevOps space. Now, that's one approach. I can do also a whole other live stream about just talking about that specifically and how I start learning about new topics. Now, the other thing is, should you be going from web development, or do you need development experience to go into DevOps? It is beneficial if you have sysadmin, like system administration background or engineering background, and you go into DevOps. It's highly beneficial from what I've seen. I don't think it's necessary depending on how you get started. Like mentioned, I got into DevOps through my developer advocacy role, which was focused on blockchain companies. So it's obviously there are different areas, different ways that you can break into it. And the web development space is highly saturated, and whether there are career opportunities within DevOps. So the thing is that you find a lot of boot camps, a lot of people trying to make money off people who are wanting to get into engineering, into web development, right? So the thing is, those boot camps, they sell themselves on the premise that you take the boot camp, you even $10,000, and after 3 months, you're guaranteed to have a job for the skills that you learned within this 3 months through this boot camp. Now, this is obviously a whole business behind it of trying to teach you skills as quickly as possible and getting your job. And that's obviously those boot camps, they live on the premise for you to finding a job. Now, if there are lots of boot camps that are focused on web development, because that's easy to get started with, right? When I got started with doing basically engineering work, I was doing TypeScript, JavaScript, and front-end development to build my website. And sometimes it's easier, there are more resources accessible to you and so on to get started with it. So a lot of boot camps focus on web development, and that's why there are lots of people who have amazing web development skills or average web development skills. And that's why the web development space is, from what I've experienced and seen, highly competitive. And I've tried to get web development positions and nobody wanted to hire me because I was studying on the side and I wanted to get a full-time job, but I didn't have the skills yet. Anyway, it's a different story. So it's a highly saturated space. So if you want to get into DevOps and build your skills, I wouldn't say if you have other skills already, just throw them away, like mentioned earlier, but find ways in how, if you want to get into DevOps, if that's something that's interesting to you, find ways on how you can translate your skills from one area to the other. Which is also a different topic that I could make a whole live stream about. So please do let me know what's interesting, because I don't want to talk for an hour about something that nobody's really interested in. So if there's something you're really interested in, then I certainly can spend more time on it. Awesome. So it's already like 1 hour since I'm recording. Oh yeah. And you're still around. Wow. I must be either entertaining or I don't know. We'll see. So what other questions are there? Is there any? Kunal, I appreciate your input. I love that you're involved, but I don't know if there are questions from other people that I missed out. When should you start your 100 days of Kubernetes learning? Whenever you feel like it. Really, it's about your own motivation. Get started with anything. Get started with reading about it and whether or not you want to actually do it. What other things do we have here? I will try to ignore this. I'm really slow, especially when I talk, I'm really slow in typing and I get really nervous while typing. And I posted something on Twitter about my typing being really slow, and I tried to work on it. But yeah, it's really slow. So that's hurtful. But thank you for your comment. Okay, no, I'm joking, right? Okay, all the openings I have seen in DevOps space require prior work experience of minimum 2 years. Can you fresh straight out of university work in DevOps? So in university, there are lots of opportunities for students, like I just showed with the CNCF students. Let me link it here so you can have a look at that as well. So here, CNCF students, there are lots of opportunities for students where you can start building up your skills. And the more you do with a university, outside of university, the more valuable you will be later on. Nobody has asked me about my grades, but people have asked me a lot about what things I have done, what things I've learned, right? So it really depends. Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of especially like starter jobs, they will still ask you for 2 years. But the thing is, you have to bear in mind that a lot of times in a lot of companies, you have a recruitment team and you have the engineering team, right? And what happens is that the recruitment team or the engineering team just goes to the recruitment team and says, "Hey, we need more people." Then the recruitment team is like, "Okay, what kind of people do you need? Tell me." And then a way too busy manager who has way too much to do a lot of times, especially in startups, it's just going to be like, I need this, right? And the recruitment team a lot of times does not know what that translates into, right? And it's just putting 2 years or 5 years as a minimum of experience onto that job application to filter people out, right? So they want to basically make sure that you have the skills they are asking for. And one lazy way of doing that by filtering out is to say, okay, at least 2 years of experience. So even if you don't have 2 years of experience, if you can show example projects that show that you know what they are asking for, that you have those skills, that is a lot more valuable, because ultimately the 2 years are really mainly to filter out applicants. Like that's ultimately what it boils down to. No, I'm not a recruiter, but that's what I've seen and experienced and what other recruiters have told me. So yeah, what else is there? I hope it was entertaining. Thank you. I hope it was. I tried to make it more entertaining in the future. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I think this is pretty much it. If there's something I did not answer, and I think, Kunal, I didn't answer lots of your questions, you can just jump into the Discord channel, which is, let me just bring it up, community.100daysofkubernetes.io. And once you check that out, that link, it would show you an invite, I think. I think this invite works. It should. I hope it works. Well, Kunal, you're late to the party, so next time. Anyway, thank you for joining last minute. Yeah, this was really fun. If you have not seen the beginning, I highly suggest you to rewatch it, because it answered lots of the questions that a lot of people probably have or might have. And if there's anything else, then please drop into our community Discord channel and ask them there, and we can have a conversation. Other people can get involved in the conversation, provide their perspective. Yeah. Oh no, everybody's sad now. Good job. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Kunal does a lot of amazing work with the Academy. Let me showcase the Academy again. So Kunal is also over here. That's him talking. So if you want to see more of Kunal's work, check out the Academy. He has done amazing work on the Academy and also on the DevOps Bootcamp that you can find on the Sivo YouTube channel. So check that out as well. If you're more interested also in beginner to intermediate resources, then check those out. If you're interested in more advanced resources, then check out our guide section, which provides a lot of guides and tutorials and deep dives. And you can sign up. If you sign up to Sivo, you get $250 worth of credit to your account that you can use on Sivo resources such as Kubernetes clusters. And then you can also try out K9s like I did here. This is K9s, which is a really cool tool. Oh, if you type it correctly. So check all of that out. And I really hope to see you in one of my next live streams. Thank you so much for joining. I hope this was useful. Get involved with the community. Community.100daysofkubernetes.io. Thank you so much for joining. Bye. Bye-bye.